This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. When it comes to savings, no amount is too small. Microsaving is a growing part of the international movement of microfinance. The aim is to bring financial services to poor people. Modern microfinance started with Nobel Peace Prizing economist Muhammad Yunus in Bangladesh. In the 1970s, he started small loan programs that would become the Grameen Bank. Currently, microcredit providers are in over 100 countries. Now, microfinance institutions are starting to offer other services, including savings plans. Recently, the nonprofit group Small Enterprise Education and Promotion held a conference in Washington. SEEP works with over 120 groups around the world in efforts to cut poverty. It does this by supporting small businesses. The goal is to help microfinance industry experts share ideas. One idea is called Financial Access at Birth, or FAB. It is designed to start each person with a financial citizenship at birth through a savings account connected to a bank deposit. Rosita Najmi is FAB's program director. She says FAB starts with financial inclusion, but creates other possibilities for inclusion across other sectors of health or education. Mobile or wireless technology will be important to many microfinance services. One meeting at the SEEP conference examined a mobile phone application for saving money. Debbie Dean of the Grameen Foundation says these efforts can also be extended to other financial services. They could include a combination of savings programs and money transfer programs. She says this could provide the most flexibility and convenience for savers. But offering savings, payments, and other services requires more training and controls. Rashid Bajwa leads Pakistan's largest microfinance organization. He says more training is needed. And he says microfinance institutions will need specialized people when they start offering savings programs. Small savings deposits add up, and interest over time makes them grow. This can have a surprising effect for savers and societies. Rashid Bajwa puts it this way. He says the amount of money that poor people have is imaginable. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Pursuit.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. Microsoft has fought legal battles with officials in Europe and the United States over competition in the personal computer market. But at the end of March, Microsoft accused Google of being anti-competitive. A complaint to the European Commission accused Google of unfairly controlling the internet search market in Europe. Google was already talking to the Commission about the issue and said it was happy to explain to anyone how its business works. But Google also faced other issues. Gmail users in China began reporting problems with Google's email service in late February. The problems came as news of the revolutions in the Arab world filled the internet, and there were online calls for protests in China. Google said the government was interfering with its email service. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Jiang Yu called those accusations unacceptable. But Google spokeswoman Jessica Powell said, "This is a government blockage, carefully designed to look like the problem is with Gmail." Google is the world leader in internet search. But in China, the biggest search engine is Baidu. And in late March, China's largest internet media company, Sina, dropped Google's search engine from its website. Sina said it would use its own technology. An estimated 450 million Chinese are online, about half of all internet users in Asia. In 2010, Google said a cyber attack from China had attempted to get information from the Gmail accounts of human rights activists. Google also expressed concerns about censorship. So, Google relocated its Chinese search engine from the mainland to Hong Kong. In March, Google also faced new problems at home. A federal judge in New York ruled against its plan to put millions of books online. Google wants to create a digital library of all the world's books. It reached a $125 million deal in 2008 with groups representing writers and publishers. Google agreed to create a system to pay copyright holders when their works are used online. But Judge Denny Chin rejected the proposed settlement. He said it would give Google monopoly control of the book search market. But he left open the possibility for a new plan. On a similar issue, Baidu in China said it removed almost 3 million documents from its library. Writers have complained that Baidu did not have permission for their works to appear on its document sharing site. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. You can read and listen to our programs about business and other subjects at voaspecialenglish.com. And click on the classroom for interactive exercises for English learners.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report in Special English. Ethiopia is one of the last countries in Africa to permit mobile banking. Mobile banking has proved to be profitable in the developing world, where many people still do not use banks. Earlier this year, the World Bank reported that 75% of the world's poor are unbanked. That is about 2.5 billion people. Banking through mobile phones lets people take part in financial services even if they are not near a bank. Until recently, Ethiopia and Zimbabwe were the only nations in Africa without mobile money services. Now, that has changed for Ethiopia. Belcash and Mbir are mobile banking technology providers. They have been setting up mobile banking and mobile money services in Ethiopia for the past 3 years. The Dutch company Belcash is working in partnership with banks to provide easier access to financing through bank accounts. Ireland-based Mbir is a mobile money service that works with microfinance groups where no registration with a bank is needed. Ethiopia's mobile phone industry is young, and wireless service coverage in the country is not well developed. The pressure on the wireless network is expected to increase. In the past 4 years, the number of mobile users grew from 3 to 17 million, and Ethiopia's telecommunications provider, Ethio Telecom, expects that number to grow to 40 million in the next 3 years. The government closely controls Ethiopia's telecommunications market. That means there is only one provider. Competition is not permitted. The National Bank of Ethiopia recently finished a draft order on how mobile banking services should be structured. This comes as international companies have shown interest in starting mobile banking services. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. More than 50 countries and organizations have promised to give more than $5 billion to help Haiti rebuild after an earthquake destroyed much of the country in January. United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said the amount of money was greater than expected. Mr. Ban, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and Haitian President René Préval led a conference of donors at the UN March 31st. The Secretary General said nations and their international partners promised $5.3 billion for the next 2 years and almost $10 billion in total. The United States promised more than $1 billion. The European Union said it would give more than $1.5 billion. Mr. Ban urged the donors to carry out their promises. He said the donors must make sure Haiti gets the money it needs when it needs it. And they must guarantee that the money is well spent. The money will be used to meet emergency needs, such as water, food, and shelter for homeless people in Haiti. It will also be used to rebuild Haiti's infrastructure, its important systems and services. These include transportation and communication systems, water and power lines, and public institutions, including schools and hospitals. The money will also create new jobs and put the country on the road to sustainable development. It is expected to take 10 years and more than $11 billion to finish the job. Secretary Clinton said donors and the government of Haiti showed a new level of international support, coordination, and cooperation. Haitian President René Préval expressed his thanks and said the Haitian people and government would do their part to make the country's rebuilding a success. Haiti's government will have the major responsibility for supervising those plans. It will work closely with international partners, including the United Nations, the United States, and international financial organizations. The huge earthquake that struck Haiti killed more than 230,000 people. It left more than 1 million other people homeless in a nation where most citizens were already living in deep poverty. And that's the VOA Special English Economics Report. You can comment on this story and other programs at voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. 2 American rulings could change how information is controlled online and in our bodies. In April, a federal appeals court in Washington ruled that current laws limit government power over internet traffic. The court rejected an order against America's biggest cable company. In 2007, officials ordered Comcast to stop interfering with file sharing programs used by its internet customers. Comcast said big files slowed its network. All three judges agreed that the Federal Communications Commission had no legal basis to tell Comcast what to do. The FCC supervises communications by radio, television, wire, satellite, and cable. But its power over internet and wireless communications has long been questioned. Now, without changes in the rules, network providers could slow or block services of competitors. The decision came just weeks after the FCC announced its National Broadband Plan to provide faster, lower-cost connections for almost all Americans. The FCC says the court in no way disagreed with the importance of preserving a free and open internet. The agency could seek new powers to regulate internet service and enforce net neutrality. That is the idea that all content on the web should be treated equally. In a different case, a recent ruling in New York renewed debate about who can own genetic information. Myriad Genetics received patents for methods to identify women with genes that create a high risk of breast cancer. Patents involving the two genes made Myriad the only company able to offer the costly tests. But federal judge Robert Sweet canceled 7 of 23 patents related to the genes. He said they violate the law against patents for products of nature. Yet companies and universities often claim human genes as intellectual property. An estimated 20% of human genes have been patented in the United States. Judge Sweet said the Patent Office thinks DNA should be treated like any other chemical compound. The idea is that removal from the body and purification makes it into something different that can be patented. He said many consider this a lawyer's trick to avoid the ban on the direct patenting of DNA, but the result is the same. Cancer activists and researchers fought the patents. Myriad is appealing the ruling. And that's the VOA Special English Economics Report.
I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Economics Report. Changes are taking place in Silicon Valley in California. Larry Page will replace Eric Schmidt as chief executive at Google. And Apple's chief, Steve Jobs, is taking another medical leave. 2 years ago, Mr. Jobs received a new liver. In 2004, he had pancreatic cancer. The latest announcement did not say how long he might be away or give a reason. Apple reported record-high earnings for the final 3 months of last year. But the health of Steve Jobs always brings questions about the future of the company. He helped start Apple Computer in 1976. Today, the company that played a big part in the personal computing revolution just calls itself Apple. Its products include the iPod and iPhone, and its latest success, the iPad tablet computer. Steve Jobs has long been Apple's public face, but some might forget that he left in 1985 to form a computer company called Next. Manuel Perez Quiñones is a computer science professor at Virginia Tech. He says Apple has led the development of some technologies, but that explains only part of its success. For example, he says many development tools associated today with Apple came from Next. Apple bought Next in 1996. Mr. Jobs rejoined Apple and became the permanent CEO in 2000. Last May, Apple passed Microsoft in market value and became the most valuable technology company in the world. Mr. Jobs says he will remain Chief Executive Officer and stay involved in major decisions during his medical leave. But he put Tim Cook, his Chief Operating Officer, in control of daily operations. As Steve Jobs steps back at Apple, Eric Schmidt is stepping down at Google. Mr. Schmidt plans to leave his CEO job in April after almost 10 years. He will remain on Google's board of directors. Larry Page was Google's founding CEO when he launched the company with Sergey Brin in 1998. But Mr. Schmidt has been the public face of Google, while Mr. Page has mainly worked on new products. Today, Google is the world leader in internet search and has products like the Android operating system for mobile devices. But Google is seen as trying to recapture the creative energy and speed of its early days. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. For more economic news, go to our website, voaspecialenglish.com. I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Economics Report. President Obama announced an agreement with congressional Republicans in December. It would extend for 2 years the tax cuts put in place by former President George W. Bush. The tax cuts were to end in January. The compromise extends current income tax rates for all Americans for 2 years. That includes rates for the richest Americans. The agreement also cuts workers' Social Security taxes by 2 percentage points. Social Security is retirement insurance paid by almost all American workers and employers. The so-called payroll tax holiday would save a family earning $50,000 about $1,000 a year. For the president, the most important part of the compromise was the extension of aid payments to unemployed Americans for 13 months. In November, the jobless rate increased by 0.2% to 9.8%. Economists say payments to unemployed people directly help the economy because they spend the money immediately. This has led some experts to call the agreement a stimulus measure meant to improve the economy. President Obama said he accepted the compromise because he wanted to help unemployed Americans. But the president faced strong opposition from his own party. Some Democrats objected to keeping tax cuts for the rich at a time when the government is struggling with deep budget deficits. The extension of the tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans is expected to cost about $80 billion over 2 years. The deal also includes tax cuts aimed at middle-income Americans and businesses. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said Republicans support the deal. He said it was an important step to take for the American people. Before the agreement, Senate Republicans had threatened to block other measures unless the tax cuts for the richest Americans were extended. Some Democrats were disappointed that President Obama agreed to the compromise. In 2008, he campaigned on the promise that he would continue tax cuts for the middle class. But he proposed to raise income taxes on families reporting $250,000 or more in taxable income. Later in December, both houses of Congress passed the tax bill, and President Obama signed it into law. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal.